All right, welcome back to Fan Fuel, Aaron and Maria. We got a special guest today. Miss Maria, would you like to introduce our special guest?
Yes, we have Wally Rogers here, crew chief of the 44 Niece Motorsports truck, and we're very excited to have him on. We're going to ask him about his career and some questions that we need help with because we don't know technical things like he does.
I'm not sure I know
Well,
him either,
let's
but
just
I can
start
figure
here.
it out.
Well, if not, you can pretend a lot better than we can. You can use big
Yeah.
words that none of us know and understand.
I understand.
All right, so let's start here. How did you get into NASCAR?
Oh, wow. Without getting too far back, my grandfather raced modifieds all through the 40s. My father, when he came back from Vietnam, he wanted to start racing. So my grandfather helped my father start. So I grew up in the Northeast. I grew up in New Jersey. Wall Stadium was like it. So I just I've been around it my whole life. Like I played all different sports. I played football, baseball, hockey, all that stuff. But there's a passion that I had for racing, like always. The competition, the way things are, I just loved it. So
That's awesome.
after that, my dad is good friends with Ray Evernham, and Ray was doing the IROC series back through the 80s. And I started there. My later years of high school, started cleaning cars, like kind of part-time, doing all that stuff, and realized like, dude, this is what I want to do. This is where it's at right here. And then I went cup racing, like right out of the gate. I went to work for IROC. I was maybe at the time I was one of the head chassis mechanics. I was young, so it was when computers were just starting to get kind of big, right? So I could build shocks and understand how the shocks worked on the car, understood the springs and the setups and all that stuff pretty young. And I left IROC and I'm like, if I'm really going to do this, I just need to pack my stuff up and move down south. So I packed all my stuff up and I moved to Asheville, North Carolina and went to work for Leo Jackson in the School Bandit. And I left IROC as as one of the higher ups, I guess you could say at the time. And I went there to be like an interior guy, but it was the only way to get my foot in the door. And then 2 years later, maybe even a year and a half later, I was the car chief there. And I kind of handled pretty much the majority of day-to-day operations. And that's kind of how it all got started.
Well, this is not on our prep sheet, but you're another modified guy. And as a guy that works
Yeah.
for a team full of modified guys, we
Yeah.
always have to shout out the modified guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people this, and I will till the day I die, that there is not a race car sexier than a NASCAR modified. Not one. Nothing even close.
Love that. I know too that you've obviously had a very long and interesting career after that point. So can you kind of walk us through like some of the teams that you worked for and like moving from cup to truck and all those different things?
Yeah, sure. So when I was working for Andy, Joe Nemechek was driving for us. So this was would have been like 2000, I guess. And Joe was partnering with a guy named Ed Evans. Ed Evans was a guy that was involved in a lot of cell phone companies. I honestly I think he's the president of Consumer Cellular nowadays, right? A super awesome dude, right? And they were starting a team to be teammates to Joe to run full time with Randy LaJoy driving. So even though Joe was driving for us at Petrie's, he had said, "Hey, listen, there's this opportunity. You should do it." And I mean, I felt like when I was at Andy's, I felt like as long as Andy was there, I was never going to get the opportunity to crew chief anything, right? Because I mean, it's Andy Petrie, right? So it's like this opening is never really going to happen. So I pounced on that, and myself and Joe Nemechek and Brian Patty was Joe's head guy at the time. We had sat down and kind of came up with a deal where I was going to crew chief Randy LaJoy. So in 2001, my first year crew chiefing, we go to the first race at Daytona. We sit on the front row, like literally built a brand new team from scratch. Like we didn't have anything. And Brian was so well organized. He had a good plan and way to lay everything out. And we sit on the front row and win the freaking race, man, like right out of the gate. And I say this, and I remember like the last call was like, if I feel like our car was good, we had terrible pit stops all day. Our team was brand new. Everybody had the jitters, like even myself. Like I was like to the point where I'm like ready to go throw up in the portage on every pit stop. But we comes down to the last pit stop, and I get two tires to get us out front because I felt like there's 25, 27 to go or something like that. And I'm like, if we can get track position, we got shot. Like our car is super fast. And lo and behold, I look down and I call for two tires, and we get two tires, which got us out in front of everybody. I look down and my dad was in front of me, and my dad is like looking up at me like, what the hell did you just do? Like that was the dumbest call ever. And I'm like, I'm going to give myself a shot to win this race. And I look down at him, he's shaking his head like, oh, I can't believe you did this, right? He was real animated about it. And We go on to win the race. So he comes up and he's looking at me and like everybody's in awe, like our whole team's in awe. Like this really wasn't supposed to happen, but it did. And he looks at me and he says, "I can't believe that happened." I said, "Don't you ever freaking doubt me again." And honest
I
to
feel
God, it
like
all.
all the Denny Hamlin fans right now are like shaking their heads, being like, "Why weren't you crew chiefing last year for Denny Hamlin? You would have made the
No,
right call."
that's a one-off goal. I've always been known to be a gambler, right? Because I feel like you only get so many opportunities at winning any of these things, or even any more of running in the top five. Like you have to put everything out there, to say it nicely. And that was kind of what started it for me, was like, you know what, I'm gonna take a chance on this and I'm gonna win this freaking race. Like, So it kind of started out really awesome. And then we had a bunch of blunders that year, like we were blowing motors and our pit crew was still not very good at the time. So after a couple of years of that, I think we won Memphis again that year. And the Memphis thing was kind of special because it was like right after 9/11. Obviously, being from New Jersey, like as a kid, I could walk out on my back deck and the towers are right there. I saw them every day as a kid. I could walk down to the beach, and right across the beach from me was the Verrazano Bridge. Manhattan was right there. It was awesome. So that was kind of special to me to go there and win that. And actually, I won that by getting two tires there too, I think. So took a chance on that, and it worked out.
So yeah, let's walk through what's a typical race week look like. You got, on the truck series, you guys run a pretty hot and heavy schedule. So what's a typical race week look like for you as compared to an off week?
So a typical race week would be, obviously come back from that race. We would tear the previous week's truck down, get all
Hold on,
the.
before you proceed, what does that actually mean?
Okay. So I mean, you think about it like this, right? As the truck teams, we certainly don't have the budgets as like the Cup teams do, or even some of the O'Reilly teams. So what we end up having to do is like we'll need to take the seat out of this truck. We'll need to take a lot of the interior stuff. Obviously, the motor comes out every week.
Obviously.
The springs, shocks, all that stuff, even sway bar arms or things like that, we take them out because that truck will then, even if didn't have a scratch on it, it still goes back through the system to get everything remeasured on it because the tolerances on all the templates nowadays are so tight that you can't afford to leave anything on the table. So we'll do that on Monday. A lot of times for myself, we go to the simulator. We go to GM Simulator. They have two of them. So sometimes on Mondays and even Wednesdays, we'll go to simulator. Where Mondays is usually like the motion simulator, the one that moves all around. Like if you're in there, about make you sick. And then they have like a static one, which is like an iRacing thing on steroids, I guess you can describe it as. And we're usually in there for 3 hours a day on that. Sometimes we'll go at night. It just depends on how much work we really feel like we need to make on that particular vehicle. So then after the simulator, we'll take everything that we learned in the simulator because there's no practice or anything like that anymore, or limited practice, I should say, to where you can change springs, all that other stuff. And we will apply all that to our vehicle that we're racing that week. And then we set it up, put everything in there that we learned from the simulator, apply that. And then we have a pull down machine, which is just to verify all the simulation. The simulation stuff nowadays is so close. Like we change 30 seconds of bump stop shims and 30 seconds of camber shims. Like it's pretty amazing how close it is. And that's up to the nerds really do that the majority of the time, the engineers, which I do have a grasp on that stuff, but it's good to let them know because they know the working components of what they are, but they don't necessarily always know exactly how it functions. So being like myself, who's kind of been on both sides of it, I can explain to them how it works, where you're not just trying to make these squiggly lines line up. This is what is actually happening, throughout those lines.
And then, like, compared to an off week, what's different there?
The off week, typically we try to operate about a week ahead. So, like, I'll give you last week is a good example, right? Where did we just race? Oh, Wilkesboro. You get to this age, you can't remember where you just were. Anyway, we were at Wilkesboro, but our IRP truck was already on the surface plate and like getting the splitter angles and all the body heights and all that stuff done. So we try to maintain that even during the off weeks. Now, if we get to a point where we're going to build a brand new truck, and we've done our fair share of that this year, we try to do the brand new trucks during those off weeks. So it's not as taxing on us. But I will say during that 5 or 6 week stretch that we had, we built a brand new one every week.
Oh my gosh.
We were logging some hours for sure. We were really.
When you're like building these trucks, what kind of differs between if you're building a truck for a road course versus like a super speedway versus like an intermediate track? Like how much is different between those styles of racetracks on the truck?
Yeah, people think that this is a dumb question, but it's really not a dumb question. It's actually a good question because a lot of people don't understand. You'd be surprised how many people think that like we go down to Team Chevrolet and go pick up a brand new Silverado and we gut it, weld a roll cage in, and we go race. You would honestly be surprised. But so I'll start with a speedway truck, right? A speedway truck, it requires different frame heights because of the rules. It all has a whole different rule package, right? But when we build them with minimal downforce and no drag. Like you want it to be shaped like a bullet. Now, the downside to that is at Talladega, you can get away with like that thing being slicked up and no downforce and all that. But at Daytona, more and more, it's becoming that we need it again. So finding the balance between that is difficult. You can sometimes have them go qualify really good because they're super slicked out and they're fast. But in the race, the poor guy is yelling at you the whole time on the radio because it doesn't drive worth a damn. So that's the balance of that. So the speedway stuff is basically no drag. The road race stuff is pretty much built straight up, so it can go left and right, depending upon like Lime Rock and Watkins Glen are majority right-hand turns. So you kind of have to build the setup and even some of the body stuff to the spec to where it puts downforce in the left side of the vehicle rather than the right side like you would on a normal oval track, right? And then the brake cooling and, the road race stuff, you build it where like super low center of gravity, build it, as low, everything as low as you can, everything as compact as you can and as light as you can in reality, because 9 out of 10 times those races are like enduro races. So you really just, I mean, you're going to throw it, we always say it's door tops down after every one of those races. So you might as well just plan on it. And that's what we do.
Can I ask a stupid question? The gas tank, because you're on the right side because you're pitting opposite. Like when you buy a road truck or you build a original road truck, is that already over there, or like you have to like switch that? Like that's like probably wicked stupid, but like
No, it's really not. It's not because what people don't understand is like that fuel cell, unlike what's in your passenger car, it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 volts, and it comes out. You
yeah.
take the rack out, you take the fuel cell out. Well, there's a top on that fuel cell, right, where the spout comes out, where the gas thing goes in the side of it.
Mm-hmm.
That particular top, it turns. So it can get pointed to the left or it can get pointed to the right. So basically you just turn the top around. But inside of it, the pickups where their pickups are, the fuel pickups down in the fuel cell. On an oval track, we always run them as far on the right side as you can, right? Because all the inertia and the centrifugal force is pushing all the fuel back into that corner. So you want to pick up as much fuel as you can. Road race is not like that, right? You go left, right, left, right. So we end up running 2 pickups and you run them back in both corners. Yeah.
So it wasn't a stupid question.
No, it's really not. No, it's a legit question. That's legit.
That's interesting. Okay.
All right, so here's another one. So no race ever goes according to plan. Like I think everybody knows that. So when crap just hits the fan and like in the F1 movie, you're on plan C and there's not really a plan C.
Yeah.
You being a seasoned crew chief, what type of calculations are you making in your head and what decisions are you deciding? Are you prioritizing things? Like when you're having to get a new plan together on the fly, what is your thought process to get through that?
Sure. It's first and foremost, it's minimize the damage, right? Like minimize the damage that has been done to your day. So by that I mean, like if you are at, we use Wilkesboro as an example because we were just there. So if you're at Wilkesboro, you can race without a right front fender, but it's going to take too long to cut that fender off. So you might as well figure out a way to beat it out, right? So like you beat the fender out, you clearance the tires, you do all that, right? So that's the first step. Get your vehicle back the best you can get it. Then the next step is going to be optimize your day. Try and get as many points as you can. Maybe figure out a way to save a set of tires if you've gone a lap down, to be able to put yourself in position to get the free pass and you can drive back up there. So instead of finishing 27th or 28th, you can finish 17th or 18th. Because right now points are, I mean, there's no value on them. I mean, it's crazy how much how much happens with that. So my plan is always, I've been through every scenario, right? Like I've been to points where we've had to cut stuff off, and I've been to points where no, don't cut it off. We need it. Let's try and figure out a different way to go about it. We're going to be under caution for 10 laps. So we have 10 laps to fix this. So first and foremost is always going to be minimize the damage to yourself. And then if you go about it right, and we've had to do it several times this year where we've taken trucks where we probably should have finished 30th or 32nd with us and with it, and we finished 21st. So we got 11 points out of that. You have to look at it and approach it that way. So the first thing when that happens is my calculator in my head goes to points mode. Like, how can I get the most points out?
Is that different now that we don't have playoffs, or you always kind of been in that mentality?
They have the DVP policy, right? So that put a kink in some of the armor, right? Like you'd be able to go in there, and there were times where, I remember wrecking at Talladega with a Joy where I think it was Johnny Sauter had landed on the roof of our car. And we had pulled in the garage and we cut parts and pieces off of other guys' cars that they were throwing out to put back on our car to go back out there and finish the race. But nowadays, the pit crew guys as well as your support guys behind the wall have to be very prepared, know and understand how the vehicle works. And because those points, in my opinion right now, I think they're more valuable now than they were before. Yeah. Because a guy could win a race and he still couldn't make the playoffs. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there was, so somebody, let's say behind us in points that's had a great day, they could win a race and they're still not going to make the playoffs. Like for us right now, with Andres, we're 31 points out.
Yeah.
And it's nerve-wracking right now. It really is. Like, I think that, I've been fortunate enough to race for championships and been in those positions. It's hard, man. This stuff is, I don't sound like that. I'm talking my whole life. People's like, oh, it's easy. I'm like, dude, there is nothing easy about what we do. Not any part.
Something that I hear like fans say a lot, and I'm wondering, if this has any truth to it. Like, for instance, just as an example, someone said today, okay, so not the Dash for Cash, the in-season challenge, right?
Yeah.
Todd Gilliland versus Ryan Blaney. And I was saying this is a really good track for him. And then someone was like, well, he might just race well enough to beat Ryan Blaney and not care about the win. Or, he just needs X amount of points, so maybe he won't risk it. So he doesn't he won't race for the win because he rather just get X amount of points to stay here. Is that actually real, or is that just something fans say to talk about?
It sounds to me like they're trying to do something to get a rise out of everybody.
No,
I will say this.
For
No,
real.
I'm serious. I'll be serious, right? I believe that anybody that does this and gives as much of their life to this as they do, because you do, like I tell people, the younger kids all the time, like, in order to do this and be successful at it, you have to sell your soul to it. And you better be willing to do it day in and day out. And these people think that you can flip a switch, right? Like you said, right? Oh yeah, no, you know what? I'm going to win this $1 million, and I'm just going to sit on my hands the rest of the year.
Yeah.
None of us are wired that way.
Yeah.
They're not, So I think that's a bunch of hogwash, I'll say, without saying the words I want to say. But yeah, it's I don't know why anybody would ever think that. I think that sometimes social media is giving people the free reins to just say dumb stuff, man. That's as nice as I could be about it.
Yeah.
Trust me, I get it all the time.
Well, that was my answer. I was like, at the end of the day, these people are competitors. I don't think he's going to be like, oh, let me just race it well enough to race Blaney. I don't need a win. If he's in position to win, he's going to win. He'll finish above Blaney anyways. But I think anyone's just going to race for the win if they have that opportunity. But like you said, if you get dealt a bad hand, you get in a wreck, then you just have to make the best out of it you can. Then you'll go for points because you're not getting that win.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, these races are hard to win. There are guys right now that are making it look easy, right? The Denny Hamlins of the world, Lane Riggs of the world, they are making it look easy. But, they're really good drivers, and they've been together for a long enough time to be able to gel and make all that stuff happen, because it takes time, it does. It's like, we had Carson Hocevar at our place for a couple of years, and it took him, as great as he was, it took him probably 3 years to really kind of figure it out. And he has, right? He's won a cup race. He competes to win almost all the time, and every time he's in the truck, he lays the hammer to us there too. So, yeah, it's difficult.
Speaking of the chemistry, I don't come from original, motorsports. I'd come from what you guys in the racing would call the stick and ball sports, which is a phrase I'd never heard till I got into motorsports. Like stick and ball sports. It's like, I don't even know what that means. Okay. But the closest thing that I have seen that really felt familiar to me was the driver crew chief relationship. It felt
Yeah,
very much coach to quarterback, your number one player on your basketball team to the coach.
right.
What is the key to a great driver crew chief relationship?
Understanding one another and respecting one another. Understanding, like, I've been very lucky, right? But I always treated the guy that was up and coming the same way that I treated Kevin Harvick, or the same way that I treated Ron Hornaday, or Tony Stewart, you know? And I feel like if you treat those guys with that amount of respect, now there are times when you have to remind them that, hey, listen, you know, you're only year one or year two of this, right? Without, because you don't want to sound mean or condescending to them, but you have to respect them for up and coming, because when I look back, I was probably the same way sometimes too, you know? So that chemistry, to me, the first thing is respect. You have to respect somebody. Like, I can use last year as an example when Andres come to drive for us. You know, we had Bailey Curry and Ross driving for us. And to this day, I treat Andreas with the same amount of respect as I treated those guys. Because if that guy's not on your side and he doesn't like you, I mean, we've seen it before, right? My dad told me when I first became a crew chief, he said, you know what a crew chief is in Indian, right? And I was like, what the hell does that mean? He said, it means first to go. It means it's never the driver's fault. It's always yours. So I kind of looked at it as like, well, if we work together, then it's both of our faults, right? Like if we're struggling or we're off, then it's both of us. And I treat everybody that way. I always have, or try to. I was probably not so nice in my younger years, but I've gotten older and a little bit wiser.
I mean, if that's so true, like how many times even Chase Elliott, like you just hear people calling for
Yeah,
he needs a new crew chief, he needs a new crew chief, like even the top people like blaming the crew chief. So
I
that is true.
I have more respect for Alan Gustafson than I do just about any of them in the garage, because I would not want to deal with that week in,
Right?
week out. I mean, every week they want that guy's head on a platter,
It's
man.
great.
And he's you know, he's a good guy. He's a super nice guy, and he's really freaking good. You haven't won with as many drivers as he's won with for as long as he has by being stupid. So those people, the majority of those people, I will say, they need to get out of their mom and dad's basement, go out and actually cook themselves a meal instead of having mom make hot pockets for, and go do a real job. Like, go try and do that job, because it's not
Yeah,
that
who
easy.
else better are you gonna get?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and all them guys, that Cup stuff, the older guys, and I'll probably get mad because I call him old, but he's like, I actually think he is older than me. But that's a tough series, man. It really is. That's why I went back to doing trucks, because you know, I had twin daughters. I missed all that time and being on the road all the time. I never got to see. You know, back then we were gone from Thursdays to Sunday night. You'd land in Concord, say it's Sunday night at 11 or 12 o'clock, and you'd have to be back at the shop at 6 o'clock in the morning on Monday. And the only day you got off was maybe your travel day on a Thursday when the plane left it sometime after 2. So you might have enough time to cut your grass, you know. It's a grind.
And maybe not necessarily cup to truck, but looking back at your career to now, is there parts of being a crew chief that have like changed more than others?
Yeah, I actually get that question a lot here lately, right? Because I'm the old guy. So they kind of ask me that. So when I first became a crew chief, we had there was different programs that were out for your computer where you could physically measure the car, the truck, and apply some of that stuff. And a computer program would spit out what your cambers were, your casters, your dynamic wedge, things like that. Dude, now you punch a couple things in a computer, and it's like, holy cow, this is a lot of information. But the biggest thing I learned is, like, when I first started being a crew chief, like, you knew all aspects of it, right? Like, you weren't just the guy that sits on the pit box and calls the race, all that stuff. You were the guy that was in the fab shop building your own bodies. You were cutting chassis pivots out, moving them around, and you were doing all this based off of instinct. Like, it wasn't like, well, this computer tells us to do this or this computer tells us to do that. You know, like, it wasn't that. It was, you did it all based off of instinct. And it's what really made you become a racer, so to speak, you know? And nowadays, I feel like the car chiefs and or truck chiefs have started doing a lot more of that work, the day-to-day building, assembling, all that stuff like we had to back then. I mean, I remember, I go back like 2004 or 5, we raced a truck at Martinsville. I went to work for Harvick at the time. We started KHI. We built the truck and we went and raced it at Martinsville. And Matt Crafton was driving for us. Matt loved this truck. I don't know why. He just liked it. And we had to take it back to the shop that night. We cut all the sides off of it and took it to Atlanta that following week. Like we went Martinsville, Atlanta, and it was like, oh my goodness. But what I'm saying is like doing that role like I used to have to do back then allowed me to be able to do that, and it allows me to be able to do that today and teach the younger guys that time is always of the essence, right? The sooner you get things done, the sooner we can all go home. You know what I mean? I like my house just as much as everybody else does. I don't want to be stuck here all night, but I also understand that some nights we have to. And if you want to be competitive and you want to compete to win or compete to make the playoffs, and you got to bring everything you got. So it has changed a lot, but not. I think the time away is then become I don't want to say it's the easiest part, but it is the easiest part because, like I said, you used to be gone Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and get home late Sunday night, so that didn't even count. To where now you're gone for maybe 2 days, and you're not. I don't know how a lot of the Cup teams work. I know how some of them work, but those guys aren't in the shop like every day like we were. They actually get a couple of days at home to be with their kids, and it's still difficult, right? Because you're off on a Monday and a Tuesday, but your kids are at school, your wife, girlfriend, whoever it is working. It's just like I said, you sell your soul to do this, man.
All right, so I got one more for you, not on the prep sheet, but you brought
Okay.
up something that's got me thinking. Something Maria and I have talked about, we've talked about it over at class, is this almost resurgence feel with young fans of NASCAR. Like we're seeing a younger demographic at the race than we've seen in a long time, which we love. Like,
Yeah.
I'm in the business. I got to sell sponsors to put them on race cars. So
Right.
the more people I get to a race, the better. And it's come on the back of one of the guys that races with you guys in Cletus. It's come on the back of Carson and some of the young guys that have really leaned into the social stuff. Are you guys seeing the same thing that we're kind of seeing on the fan side of like, hey, there's this kind of this new buzz
Yeah.
that NASCAR's cool again?
A couple things, right? I see it every week. I saw a lot of it at Wilkesboro. I saw a lot of young kids there. And dude, I'm telling you, it was hot. It was one of the probably top 5 hottest races I've ever been to in my whole career. They was that miserable. Anyway, there were so many young fans there, and I love it. Like I do. To me, I'm like, all right, there's future there. I'm a big fan of that. My dad did it to me. That's kind of how I got to where I am today, right? So when you see that, and then you see, the Cletuses and like Carson, they have their own little cliques going, and and they're bringing a different fan base in. I don't care who's watching, man. Just watch, learn. Maybe that person's tells one of his buddies at school to watch this, who's never doesn't even know anything about it, has watched soccer and lacrosse his whole life, and then that person gets involved in it and it brings them along. I love that. I I do. I love it. Now, with that comes a lot of backlash too, right? Like if you're Cletus's crew chief and you don't necessarily think that Cletus made a mistake or it's all the crew chief's fault or all the team guys' fault, things like that. Like that's the backlash from it. But at the end of the day, it draws people.
Yeah, we got that backlash over here.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure. I'm sure. Hey, hey, dude, he drove for us at Daytona, and it was like, man, they were like, you gave him a piece of junk. I don't know about that, dude. The guy out qualified 3 of our best trucks, so I don't want to hear none of that crap, right?
Well, anytime you feel bad about Wally, just beat him 3 wide at Talladega for the ARCA race, and you can imagine what our
Yeah,
social media looked like about 20 minutes after that race was over.
yeah, that's awesome though. That's what makes the sport cool, right? Like it really does.
And
Yeah.
I feel like this year more than the past, NASCAR's really leaning into doing things to bring in that younger crowd and letting drivers be themselves. But on the other hand, you have these older fans who are curmudgeon-y and like really don't like a lot of that. But I think we've talked about, Aaron and I have like said this, not to be like dark, but like people are going to die. We need younger fans. Like you can't just only keep having older fans and then nothing bringing it back in. Like yes, there needs to be like that balance, but it seems like a lot of the older fans are not really understanding that we need to bring along younger fans. And like, do you see that part as well?
I'll say it like this, and the thing that pisses me off the most, I'll be honest with you about this, is when they say, the racing ain't as good as it was in the 90s. And I'm like, dude, I lived that crap. I watched it. 3 cars on the lead lap. I watched Dale Earnhardt or Mark Martin just beat everybody's faces into the ground and lap everybody up to 5th place. That wasn't racing, man. It
Can you
was,
say that louder and like
yeah, it
6 more
wasn't
times
racing. No,
for
no, seriously.
everybody on
It, it,
social media?
it was racing. It was not the evolution of racing, right? So you gotta remember, right? I came from work for IROC where we built 12 identically prepared cars and put the 12 best drivers in the world in them. So when I see what the Cup Series, so to speak, is today, I see a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
But I also remember this. I remember going to Michigan and watching Randy LaJoy win in an IROC car and beat Dale Earnhardt, Mark Martin, all those guys. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that was the cool thing about it, right? I watch these races today, and yeah, there's some of it, I don't know. There's some of it I will say is not better, but there's a lot of it that is. The actual competition side of it, dude, these guys race 2, 3 wide, like every lap. And they have to use their craft to pass the guy from, which I'll say it. Look at Blaney and Denny Hamlin, right? They're Tyler Reddick. You look at the top 5 guys in points right now, they are there because they are the freaking best right now. And that's impressive. But if you look back at 1998, 1999, it was Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace, Jeff Gordon, Jeff Burton, right? Like those guys. Those were the guys. You had a couple of plain Jane kind of guys that didn't really want to, I'm going to sit here and I'm my tie when I speak and do all that. And then you had Earnhardt to get out and be like, yeah, I just moved him. You know what I mean? It was like it was 2 different things, right? So like Carson is like Earnhardt now. You know what I mean? I'm not comparing the two. So listen, people, don't come after me. I'm not comparing. I'm not comparing the two at all. But I'm saying that Kyle Busch was that. Kyle was amazing and I hated him, right? That's why he got on ballot. It was like, yeah, I got you again, boys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Our sport needs that.
Yeah.
It needs that like call, right? Like it needs everything to get mixed in a blender and then this thing pops out and it's like, holy cow, this guy is a nut job. But we need it because we're tired of hearing the same old crap.
Yeah.
I am. I've been around it longer than anybody that's been racing over there, any of them drivers. And I'm like, yeah, it has to evolve, but the racing is freaking good. It is really good. Now, it's not the COT stuff was horrible, right? Everybody knows that was the total flop. We put wings on these things, wings with side pods. I'm like, what in the world are we doing? And we turned that around, right? We made good racing. We needed those cars to open up the eyes to the safety.
Mm-hmm.
So our guys weren't getting hurt or killed for that matter. I've seen a lot of that in my years of doing this. It's hard and it'll grow and there'll be years where it's really good and there's years that it's going to suck. People are going to get mad this year because you know what? Somebody's going to clinch the championship at they're going to clinch it at Phoenix this year.
And that's what this is just what drives me.
I'm just telling you, people, this is what's going to happen.
No, I don't mind that. What I hate is, I hate the playoffs. I want it to be the old way. And then they don't remember that this is the old, like, this is what's going to happen is that someone can get so far ahead that it's clinched and then the rest of the races mean nothing. And like, to go back to what you were just saying, like, even today, I was talking about New Hampshire Motor Speedway on my TikTok and comments come rolling in and this, just like you were just saying, like, this is not that back then when they would really race. So I was like, yeah, I forgot they're out there fake racing right now. Yeah. I just don't really understand what these people think that was real racing and then this is not. Like,
ask them how many races they watched back then.
Yeah, but like, what do you think?
Probably not even old enough to watch.
What do you think it is that they saw then or think they saw then that's real racing, like compared to now? Is it just nostalgia and everyone thinks it was great because they yearn for Dale Earnhardt days or something?
20 years from now, maybe even 15 years from now, people are going to talk about Denny Hamlin, Ryan Blaney, Chase Elliott in the same way that they talked about Earnhardt, Wallace, Martin. Yeah. It's just, that's the evolution. Now, the true race fans, the true ones, not the ones that are always, listen, I got no problem to get on the track and get hammered, right? And have a good time in the infield. I got no problem with that, right?
You better not have a problem with that.
I'm just saying. But those true race fans, they come there to watch a race. They come there to watch warriors battle it out week in and week out. And a real racer, a real race car driver, a real racer that works on or anything like that, we'll go race in the parking lot for a wrinkled up Schlitz beer can, for crying out loud. Like, that's what we do. So these people, they are fans, but they're fanatic. They're being fanatical about the wrong things, in my personal opinion, right? So you just have to understand. And I feel like the more our sport can educate on how it was, instead of talking about the good old days of this and the good old days of that, the more they talk about how our sport has evolved to make the competition better.
Yes.
I mean, I could pull up the the qualifying results from, say, Atlanta Motor Speedway in 1997, and the difference is going to be 7 seconds from first to 43rd.
And that's like
It's
points.
probably 7/10 today.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, but our sport has to do a better job at bringing people into the reality and knowing what it was and what it has evolved to, which is, someone I admire. I admire Larry McReynolds, right? Because Larry's on every day. The guy is a true racer, like 100% true racer. I don't always agree with what he says, which that's okay, right? But he's smart, he's savvy, he's realistic about everything. And he's not afraid to call somebody out if he thinks like you're crazy for thinking that this is better or that's better. It's just a different type of racing.
It's such a good point. And honestly, it's kind of part of why Aaron and I would say, started this too, is to get that education out there. Like, we have fan questions, we want to ask them and teach other fans what you're just talking about. I think it's so important what you just said.
Well,
Very
like
important.
doing this for me, I love it, right? Because it's over 35 years, right, in this sport and watching it grow, right? And you have people and there are a lot of people that ask a lot of the same questions you do, and some of the people ask some of the crazy ones, right? And I'm not at the Alan Gustafson level of my head being on chopping block every week, but trust me, my DMs and all my other stuff, people will blow me up because they think I made a dumb call, right? But you have to learn to accept that and understand that, hey, you should come sit with me for a week and see what I have to go through before you do that.
Yeah.
And it's up to us and us elders, no different than an old football coach teaching a young football coach. So it's up to us to teach these people and educate them on where it was, where it is now, and where it's going. Because I'm a believer right now that the racing in the Cup Series is really good. The trucks are insane right now. Like, it is so hard right now.
Good.
So
yeah, NASCAR to me is like most of my heart, and for a lot of reasons, and I'm just so passionate about the sport. And I think that's why I also get a little defensive sometimes when I feel like people are tearing it down or not understanding, because it's like, I don't know, you're like hurting part of me. I feel like I want people to understand, so I just thank you for sharing all that.
No, and you're not wrong. I'm on the same platforms you are, right? And I see these people, especially these guys on TikTok, and there's several of them that I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you don't have nothing nice to say, but yet you're using it as your platform to promote yourself. I'm not saying that you always have to paint rainbows and unicorns, right? That's not how the world is. But every time I click on, one of your links or I see one of your TikToks or whatever, I'm like, dude, that's not real. Like, that's not true. That didn't happen. Like, I don't know where you're hearing this from. That's a bunch of crap. And all you're doing is putting the sport down that you are making money off of. So that really pisses me off,
Yeah.
Because some of us, this is our lives. Like, this has been my life for 35 years now. And I love it. I would never change anything about it. I mean, I'd like to win a couple more races and a couple more championships, but that just wasn't in the cards, right? And I ain't dead yet. I ain't given up yet. So just keep firing away.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your time today. We're definitely going to have you come back.
Absolutely. Anytime.
A lot of fun. And you guys have got a lot of racing left.
Yep.
The truck racing has been fantastic this season. I'm not going to say I make sure to watch yours and not the Cup, but maybe I would say that if I was going to say that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, I get it. Sometimes it's hard because when we race on a Friday afternoon, man, I'm like, I don't know who's going to watch this, but the replay of it will be good. I'm real watch it, yeah.
Anytime there's racing, I got to be home.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I still watch. I watch all 3 series every week.
I love that.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. We will definitely have you back, and enjoy the rest of your race season.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Bye.